Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our channel. That light in the background is kind of bright. Let's see. It's kind of hard to get rid of that light. But I want to welcome everyone back to our channel, Reclaiming Our Identity. Reclaiming Our Identity. It has been a minute. It has been a minute since our last broadcast. I don't know how to get rid of that light in the background. So you all forgive me. As you can see, the light there, and I can't get rid of that light, but forgive me. Um, but it's been a minute since our last last post. I think the last post was a couple months ago, but yeah, more than a couple months ago. It was after the trip, the visit to South Africa. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think I did a live at that time, but uploaded a video that had some content. I think I just did one video. And it has been an interesting, you know, what, 5 or 6 months. Um, I guess about 6 months now that it's been 6 or 7 months. It's been an interesting 6 months since coming back. Um, and I actually have a couple of other videos that need to be uploaded. I just have not taken the time to edit edit that footage and to update it and put it online. It's just been just a lot going on, and just haven't really been feeling like doing it, to be honest. But I thought that I needed to get back on here and I guess give some update, give some of my initial thoughts, because I know that there were some who were wanting to hear my thoughts on South Africa. If you have followed our journey since the beginning, then you know that in 2020, I felt the call of God to move to the continent of Africa. My wife and we began in 2021 visiting several African countries. We visited Tanzania. We had already gone to Kenya. We visited Ghana. We visited Rwanda. And we chose to move to Rwanda. And we lived in Rwanda from about of 2022. Uh, and we left in June of 2023. And so we were there for about 10 months. We enjoyed our time there. If you look back at our previous videos, you will notice that we had an adventure while we were there. It was seriously an adventure. If this is your first time checking out our channel, then please go back and look at some of our older videos while we were in Rwanda, and we had some serious adventures. But God closed the doors, and so He made it so that we would have to come back to the continent, but excuse me, come back to America. But coming back to America is not and was not supposed to be permanent. The plan is still to move back to the continent, move back to Africa at some point in the future. And before we decided to make the before we decided to move to Rwanda, one of the countries that we thought about but didn't really think about was South Africa. And the reason that we didn't think about South Africa is because um, we didn't want to, move to any place that was a lot like America. With the racism, with just everything, infrastructure, everything. And so after getting back from Rwanda, I just felt God impressing upon me to say, just telling me, you need to go to South Africa. In fact, while we were in Rwanda, we met some individuals who had moved from Rwanda, moved from South Africa, people who had lived in South Africa, um, and the reviews were mixed. Um, and so, getting back to America, I just felt like God was impressed it upon me to, check out South Africa. And so, in March of this year, March of 2024, I, myself and my mother, my wife was not able to travel with us because after first just getting back, she had started a new job and she did not have to leave. And so me and my mother went to check out South Africa. And I'll be honest, um, when we got there, as a matter of fact, before we even got there, I think our layover, our transfer was in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And we get there and we are getting on the plane. As a matter of fact, before we even got on the plane, we're getting on the shuttle to take us to the plane. And as we're getting on the shuttle to take us to the plane, it's just nothing but European. All I hear is these voices speaking in Dutch or German, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to work. Going to South Africa is not going to work. And so at that time, to be honest, I was a little discouraged. I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to work. This is really just going to be a scenic visit, because I just knew that, I couldn't do it. And so we get on the plane, we get to South Africa, and we went to Johannesburg. We visited Johannesburg, and I'm going to tell you that it just, to be honest, Johannesburg just blew me away. The airport was, of course, up to date, modern, is what you would expect from South Africa, because it is, from my understanding, South Africa and or Nigeria, one of the richest country in Africa. I know that Johannesburg is the richest city in on the continent, but it just blew me away. The people there were very welcoming. Most of the people, basically everybody speaks English. They also speak, because that's one of the official languages, but they speak like 11 languages in the country. The people were very, very welcoming. We had the opportunity to visit one of the local churches there. We were invited back home to eat. I actually ended up preaching at the church that we visited that particular Sabbath. We are Sabbath keepers, for those who may not know. Um, Ended up preaching at that particular church. Um, we ended up checking out Soweto. We went to Soweto. It was beautiful. Going to Mandela's house and seeing Desmond Tutu's house. What else did we do? The infrastructure it was literally, going to Johannesburg, South Africa, it was like going to America. It was like being in America, being in downtown Johannesburg, walking around, and the sights and sounds and smells of a typical downtown American city, like maybe like an Atlanta or a DC, something like that. That is what it was like in downtown Johannesburg. Our Airbnb was nice, clean. A lot of people have talked about, a lot of videos that I've seen, people talked about the load shedding, where power goes out at certain times, and that was not something that we experienced in our Airbnb. I don't know, honestly, if maybe we were just out and about during the time that it happened, but it was not something that we experienced. And now that I think about it, I remember a couple of times when we were traveling, we went on a the red bus there, which allows you to go to, all of these different, the on off, the hop on, hop off bus. And allows you to go to these different places, these different stops. And I think I remember now thinking about it, that there were times where we would go to, where we were especially downtown, and you would see lights that were not on, traffic lights that were not working. And I'm going to assume that's because of the load shedding. But other than that, we didn't have to experience it. As a matter of fact, when we were walking downtown, now that I think about it, we were walking downtown, and we went in a store. And now that I think about it, it had to be load shedding during that time because it was just odd because there were no lights on. It's a store in the downtown, no lights on, and there are people in the store shopping and doing everything else. But we didn't have to really experience that very much. We didn't have any inconveniences. Let me just put it like that. Um, we went to several malls there. We went to Santon City Mall. We went to Rosebank Mall. We went to I think it's Killarney Mall, which was actually it was probably about a 15-minute walk from our Airbnb. I think this is when we first got there. We decided to walk there. We were looking for something I can't remember exactly, um, and so we decided to go to Killarney Mall. We saw that it wasn't that far, so we just decided to walk. Um, we ended up picking up some things there, and we ended up getting an Uber back. The Uber was not expensive, to be honest. I think we were there for 7 full days, and I think I spent about maybe $60 total on Ubers. Um, I think it was about $60, something like that. So the malls are huge, especially Santon City and Rosebank. Those, I mean, it's like the it's like several of our malls in one. I think we were at Rosebank Mall, which is Rosebank and Santon are are, are upscale areas. Kind of like if you were in Atlanta, it's kind of like a Buckhead. Um, in if you were in DC, it's kind of like a Bethesda, these upscale areas. And so we're at, we went to both of these malls, and they're not malls that you would typically walk through in a day. Or basically, it would take you all day. If you were going and you were just going shopping for several different things, you would probably go to these malls and you would just spend the whole day at the mall, literally the whole day, because it has to be at least, 300 stores, at the very least. But it's a lot. Their malls are huge. Just imagine if you've ever been to maybe like a Mall of America or something like that in the States. You go to, just imagine the majority of the malls in Johannesburg being Mall of Americas. And we didn't even go to the Mall of Africa, which I was told, which I read that it is even larger than the other ones that we've seen. The money, I mean, excuse me, the cost of living is compared to America is just cheap. I remember we were in Rosebank. We were in Rosebank. As a matter of fact, we were on the hop on, hop off bus, the red bus. And I remember we were in Rosebank and we're riding by a sign for I guess for one of the apartments, one of the high-rise apartments. So of course they have these beautiful high-rise apartment buildings there in Johannesburg. And so we're riding by, and I'm looking at the billboard, and it has the cost. And so I said, let me look and see, how much it costs to rent one of these apartments. And so I looked online, and of course they use the South African rand. That's the currency, and the rand is about 17 rand to $1. So it's really really good. And so I decided to look on there, and the a penthouse a penthouse apartment in downtown Rosebank. Just imagine downtown Atlanta, downtown DC, downtown, New York or something like that. Downtown Rosebank, a penthouse apartment was going for about $1,700, which is just ridiculous. Which is just ridiculous. $1,700 for a penthouse apartment. So I'm like, man, I mean, this is crazy. This is, and so like a three bedroom apartment, okay, in this fancy upscale apartment building, security and everything, you're talking about $1,000 a month. And of course, in all of these different places, you have the security and everything. But it's like just the cost of living is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I was talking to and individual that we met there. One of the churches, one of the churches that I connected with, one of the elders there, he was the one who was taking us around and kind of showing us everything. And he was saying you can find nicer places and better places a little bit further out and cheaper. Um, and so you can, I mean, if you're talking about, getting yourself a nice 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom apartment, in Johannesburg, it is very inexpensive, very inexpensive. When we lived in Rwanda, we were able to get a house for our first house was $600, and that was a 4 bedroom, I believe, 2 bath. Our second house was $800, and it was 500. Excuse me, $800, and it was 5 bedroom, 3 bath. And that second house was in an upscale area of town, and so um, the cost of living, of course, depending on where you go, where you live, the cost of living in South Africa, as far as housing, is not that much different from Rwanda. But you could really, get by there. The goods were inexpensive. What's interesting is that while we were there, of course, we're experiencing here in America, in the States, we are experiencing inflation. Now, what I thought was interesting is that when you go to when we were in Rwanda, a lot of these, the American brands, the imported brands were, very expensive. Uh, what I thought was interesting is that in South Africa, in Johannesburg, that was not the case. So let's say you have, a box of cereal, box of Kellogg cereal. I don't know, just for it as an example, that may be $4 here. Typically it may have been $3, but because of inflation, it's $4 over here. But then over in South Africa, it may be 250. And so it just made me, and I'm talking about this is across the board with basically everything that I am looking at. It's like, I mean, all of these things are not manufactured here in Johannesburg in South Africa, yet they are cheaper here than they would be in America. The same thing with the housing, the same thing with the food. And it made me come to the conclusion that we are overpaying for everything here in America. Everything. We're overpaying for everything. And I think the reason that we're overpaying for everything is because we can afford it. And so because we can afford to spend 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, $5,000 on a house, on an apartment, whatever it may be, per month, that's what we're being charged. Where over there, the same house and better, same apartment and better, is a quarter, a fraction of the price, a fraction of the cost, which is literally insane. Um, they had a place called Woolworths. Now here in the States, we think of Woolworths and we think of the clothing store, but over there, Woolworths was a clothing store, but it also has a grocery store attached to it. It was kind of like a Trader Joe's slash Whole Foods. So you had, all of this organic produce. Well, we would say organic because over there it wasn't necessarily organic because they didn't have the processed foods that we have here. Um, and so you would get these vegetarian and vegan options and things like that that were a fraction of the cost that we would pay here. Um, fresh fruits and vegetables, in this grocery store that was, and mind you, from my understanding, Woolworths was more of the upscale, the more to a certain extent, a little bit more expensive than the other grocery stores. So it is. Listen, let me tell you, it is worth the trip. It is worth the trip to check out Johannesburg, South Africa. It is so much worth the trip that we are going back. We're not moving, or at least not yet. We are going back in 2 weeks, November 3rd. We will be heading out to South Africa. This time it will be myself and my wife because I loved it so much. I enjoyed it so much that I said, listen, we need to go and check it out. We need to check out South Africa. And I'm interested to see. my wife's views on it, because it was not, like I said, it was not on our radar. It was something that we were not going to, we really didn't care too much about visiting it. And we definitely weren't going to move. But I'm going to tell y'all now, South Africa right now is at the top of the list. Okay. Listen, I'm gonna be transparent. Listen, I have been thinking about South Africa since we left in March. I think about South Africa like every single day, about moving to South Africa. South Africa is at the top of the list. It is at the top of the list. We are visiting there in less than 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, we will touch down in 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, we will be touching down in Johannesburg. And I am planning on taking the whole family at some point next year. Lord willing, this time next year, the whole family will be uh, traveling to South Africa. That's how much I love South Africa. Um, and I just listen. I can't wait. So, but I just wanted to get on here, give my initial thoughts on South Africa. While we are there, uh, in a couple weeks, we will do some live videos so that way you guys can see. I think I did a live video while we were there before. And I think I did some where I just recorded, but we'll do some live videos while we are there so you guys can see what it's like there, or what our experience is like, and what makes me do this complete U-turn where I was like, hey, not feeling South Africa, to now I'm like all in for South Africa. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have not done so, please subscribe, like the channel, share, and we'll see you in the next video.